This is a patient of PDL cases. I'm removing protective membrane with a 25 gauge cutter. And I routinely peel the internal limiting membrane and complete removal of protective tissue. But I hit strongly the retinal surface and with and the 3D system. So, possibly resulting in retinal tears. I was so upset at that time, but I got myself and then I stained and the internal limiting membrane with ICG and peeled internal limiting membrane around the retinal tears to avoid post-operative and proliferation resulting in retinal detachment. I think this is a very severe cases.
Comments from the panel?
I think this is what happens, Mark, when you have very high magnification, and sometimes we lose what we are doing in the periphery. It has a double-edged, of course, Ingenuity gives a beautiful view of the macular surgeries, but as we turn on and while testing, I see most of my fellows, they try to hit the retina. Of course, I have been taught during my fellowship is always lift, lift, lift when you are trying to peel it. Yeah, too high magnification might probably cause such problems.
Yeah, I think the peeling component comes to an effect when you're operating in a high myopes. I know that the population of high myopia is quite high in this area. But I think the key point was what you said at the beginning, where when you get to the edge of the lens, when you are not centered, then it becomes difficult. You get, number one, you get the prismatic effects of the lens, so you lose your depth perception. But you want to finish it up, and at that point, your brain is not really thinking that you are not centered, and I think that's what ends up happening. The peeling component, I usually do that if I'm peeling on a very high myopes where you have a staphyloma, because what ends up happening is if you peel parallel to the surface of the retina, you're going to hit the wall of the staphyloma, and then you get bleeding. But in a regular peeling, usually you don't lift, so you peel on the surface, but the key is, and this is something you need to always think about, always recenter, recenter, recenter. When you're getting towards the edge, make sure that you're always centered, and that decreases the likelihood of this happening. Now, the key point is many times, as Kazuaki pointed out, you do not need to do laser treatment. They do fine, and the key is usually, and the patient does fine as long as it is peripheral, it's not in the macular or the center of the fovea. But the key is when you get bleeding, the first thing you want to do is to go up under pressure. You know, you get all rattled that this happened, but before you start thinking, the only thing that can cause a harm if you get submacular hemorrhage, that can impact the vision. So the first thing you want to do is go up under pressure. Bleeding in the on the retina, on the surface, vitreous doesn't really matter. And that gives you time to think, what am I going to do? And I mean, luckily you did not have any bleeding, Kazuaki, but then the rest is try to relieve as much traction as you can. If it's difficult, leave it alone. You don't want to make it larger. And then usually putting a gas bubble in and positioning, and the patient usually does fine.